Hey, how we doing, Marines? My name's Sergeant Charlie. We're going to be going into defensive operations, more so the management of how those things. So in your previous class, you got the actual how we're going to create that defense. This is how we're going to actually execute and like go into the tools that we need to use in order to make that defense successful. Now, all the jobs that you have to do, i.e., digging into an actual fighting position, creating obstacles, going out on patrol, these are all the jobs that you need to do. Now, what's important and what's not important is going to be your priorities of work or which jobs take priority over what. You, as the platoon commander, you're going to develop these actual things. Your platoon sergeant, he's going to be the one who oversees and ensures that they're being executed. Your squad leaders and below are going to be the ones who are enforcing and actually doing these priorities of work. Now, how I explain these priorities of work and what they actually do, that's going to be through a troop to task. Now, looking at this example of a troop to task right here, you can see I've broken it up by 3 squads. X is going to be occupation, and X plus 1, 2, 3 is going to be the hour after occupation. Let's go ahead, let's build one of these. All right, so looking at it now, I have a blank troop to task in front of you. So I need to start picking out what I want each squad to do. So first squad, I'm going to send them out on patrol. Second squad and third squad are going to develop defense. So I've got them digging in, sitting in LPOP, and doing defensive development, i.e. like placing obstacles and things like that. Now, at an hour and a half after occupation, first squad hasn't done any sort of entrenchment at all. So I'm going to give them time to actually get that initial entrenchment in. I'll send third squad on the patrol and second squad out on that LPOP. This is literally all I'm going to do for the rest of the troop to task. What job do I need done and when I need it done by? And just continuing out for the entire time that I'm in that actual defense. Now, if you guys look at the center of your screen right now, you can see this cone that I have right here. This is my FPF registration right here. Now, paying attention to what I have around here, you notice I have a patrol just before and a patrol just after. But during the actual registration portion itself, there are no patrols out. Why this is I want to have full accountability of all my Marines when I'm dropping those rounds because I don't know exactly where they're going to go on that initial registration. As a squad leader, I'm going to take these things and I'm going to break it down and turn it into my own troop to task with smaller actions in order to achieve your platoon commander's actions. Things like filling in those sector bags, getting that squad turned into skirmisher trenches, and then pushing out on patrol towards that end there at X plus 4.5 hours. Me as a squad leader achieving everything that you need done as that platoon commander. Now, the thing that's going to actually make those priorities of work successful is going to be using that troop to task and ensuring that your Marines actually understand what needs to happen on that troop to task. And then actually doing rehearsals of those actions. So telling them, like, okay, you're at X plus 2.5 hours. What are you doing? And making them go through the actual execution of those things. Another thing that I really want you guys to focus on is that this thing is continuously updated. Things are going to cause a delay on this troop to task and interrupt your priorities of work. Things like not meeting time hacks, maybe a 7-ton breaks down, contact with the enemy, and any other delays or friction that's going to cause this thing to get messed up. Just because this troop to task initial creation gets skewed doesn't mean that it just ends right there. It's a living document that's going to exist and change and manifest for the entire time that you're out there in that defense. As soon as it changes, don't just throw it out. Let it finish, let it flow. We're going to change gears real quick now and go into some personal actions directly after occupation. So if I don't have a lot of cover and concealment, I'm going to in place a hasty emplacement. They're only really good for direct fire, and I should only occupy them for a short period of time. What we use in this, or what we call these, is going to be a skirmisher trench. Now, this is just a low, shallow trench that's about as deep as my body and allows me to lay perfectly flat into an entrenched position. Later on, I'm going to turn this thing into my actual 2-man fighting hole. Now, as we're in these skirmisher trenches, one of the things we need to do is establish our sectors of fire. So the same way out at effects 1 and R5, you guys were actually assigning left and rights. We need to do the same thing in the defense, just a little bit more deliberate. So what that's going to be is that's going to be your squad leaders using their compasses, defining those actual left and right lateral limits the same way that you used them at R5 and FEX 1, but getting an actual azimuth to each one of them. I then pass these things to that person in that fighting position. They're going to record them down, and we'll be using these things later on when we're creating our sector sketches and our fire plan sketches. But the main thing you guys need to know is that they need that actual azimuth of their left and rights. Now, with these sectors, with those left and rights, I need to actually mark them. The two ways that I can mark them is going to be with sector stakes or sector bags. Now, sector stakes, I can place these things in quickly. They're typically made of wood, so they're easily camouflaged. Unfortunately, they get bumped and moved a lot, so they're not really that stable, and I can't really adjust them very fast. By a sector bag, which is just a full sandbag placed as the left and rights, I can easily adjust those things. They actually protect me from direct fire, but I need to actually camouflage those things. What I like to suggest to people is that, and what I personally as a infantry marine used, I would place sector stakes initially, and then as I filled into my defensive position, I would slowly replace my sector stakes with sector bags. That way I'm maximizing the pros of both of them and eliminating the cons for them as I'm developing my defense further. Let's focus at these sector bags real quick. So I have two ways that I can actually create these things. It's called the V shape and the A shape. Now they both achieve the left and right lateral limits, but it goes into how I'm actually employing the weapon system. So think of the type of weapons that we have, M16s and 249s. Or does my weapon have bipods or no bipods? You look here on the right-hand side, I have a space right here that allows those bipods to actually be placed into that set of sandbags. I can now pivot my weapon off of those bipods and engage them properly. All right, let's go ahead and change gears again. So my fire plan sketch, the thing that you as the platoon commander are going to use to see what your defense is actually doing. The progression of that is going to start with a sector sketch. Your fire team leader is going to make their own fire plan sketch. Squad leader is the same thing. Then you as the platoon commander are going to create your own fire plan sketch so you can see what's going on. Let's start out with that sector sketch. So a sector sketch is just a sketch of the individual fighting positions placement of what they're actually seeing out in front of them. Now I can either do this topographical or picture frame of what they actually see. I'm going to show you topographical because it transfers over easier to the fire plan sketch. So as you can see, I have just a basic format of what a sector sketch is going to be. I fill out my unit name, direction of north, and I can start adding in my left and rights and the actual 8-digit grid of this fighting position. We're going to use that later. As you can see, I've added in the left and rights, going in the actual lateral limits that was given to me by that squad leader, and I can start adding in the actual terrain that's out in front of me. Identifying features that are out there like that rock, they put some wire out there, I draw that into my sector sketch. I can then use these to actually mark out what's actually out there. Filling in on the references and comments on the other side over here, you can see number 2 right here, engaging with a 203. That's that tree right here where I have some dead space. This will allow somebody else to come and pick up this sector sketch and effectively employ themselves in this fighting position later on. Once I've completed this sector sketch, I'm going to duplicate this and push it to my fire team leader who's going to use it to create his fire plan sketch. The most important things in this sector sketch is going to be that 8-digit grid and the left and right lateral limits. This is what they're going to use to make that fire plan. All right, so when I'm creating a fire plan sketch, it's going to be on some sort of grid paper that's going to allow me to create a map when I'm doing it. In essence, what I'm making is a mini map for me to reference when I'm out there to see what's going on. What I need in this is I'm going to need a scale, what each square actually means. For you guys, having a unit SOP on all sector sketch or on all fire plan sketches being the same scale will allow it to be a lot easily transferable from your fire team sketches to your platoon commander sketches. The other things I'm going to need is going to be my eastings and northings on the left and rights. This will allow me to easily plot positions of where these guys actually are at. Once I have this in, I can start adding in the actual terrain that's out in front of there. Now it's time to start plotting positions. So using those sector sketches, I plot each position of my fire team. Remember, I'm making a fire team fire plan sketch right now. I've got their left and rights actually plotted on the map using a protractor. I've got my actual engagement area and trigger lines out there. So that red line is going to be my engagement area, trigger line green, and trigger line yellow are delineated in front of my fire team right there. Adding in alternate supplementary positions, as well as my FPF, obstacle plans, anything and everything that that fire team is going to be affected by is going into that actual fire plan sketch right here. Everything that my fire team's affected is now plotted onto my fire plan sketch. I'm going to duplicate this the same way my sector sketches were duplicated and pass one level higher. My squad leader is now going to plot my positions. Now note, the squad leader only plotted the entire fire team, not each position. The reason why is if I plot every single position, it's just going to clutter up my fire plan sketch. So he plots each fire team, all the other little obstacles and everything that the rest of the squad's going to affect. I've got a machine gun that's attached to this squad right here. And now I'm ready to pass this on. I've got some dead space down in the bottom right as well. Duplicate this, pass it higher to the platoon commander. So this is where you guys come in. Platoon commander is going to plot that squad. That squad, the left and right squads as well. Alternate submarine positions are plotted in here, and everything else that they're going to be added into this. So you can see up in the top right, I've got my close-in fires right here. Again, I've got my FPF right here. This is my FBL, marked by that machine gun as well, going along the frontage of my defense right there. I've got that CP marked right behind my main effort, as well as my dead space marked down in the bottom right-hand corner. All right, now this thing just got pulled back and we can see a bunch more stuff outside of my engagement area. As that platoon commander, when I'm making that fire plan sketch, I want to be able to see everything that's both inside and outside of my engagement area, because this is where I'm going to be able to identify both my dead space and where I want to push my depth out. So like PEX, if you guys are looking in this right portion of the screen, you see checkpoint 5 right here. Same way with PEX, when you guys were tasked with going out to checkpoints, this is what you're doing now with your defensive patrols. I've got an LPOP down here on the bottom side, nearby checkpoint 2. This allows me to identify where I need to start pushing people. So if I see some sort of movement down here by checkpoint 1, like an enemy moving this way, I can now identify how I want to actually respond to that enemy contact. I.e., maybe moving my least engaged unit, my top left team right here, into those alternate positions down here so I can best engage that enemy if they're coming into that location. Now, the same way that you guys have passed up through the chain of command, duplicate and pass up, you guys are going to do the same thing as the platoon commander, taking the information that's on this and passing it to the company commander so the company commander can see what's going on with the entire company's defensive position so he can engage the company the same way you're engaging your platoon. All right, guys. Now, what you see up on your screen right now is all the components of the fire plan sketch. This is everything that you guys need in order to be successful in a fire plan sketch. All of this is inside your student handout. One of the things I like to tell all lieutenants is the Marine Corps and the TBS as well, it's an open book test when it comes to field evaluations. No AI, no leadership group will ever blame you if you are trying to figure something out and you pull out a reference document in order to make sure that you're successful. Obviously, like in a test environment, they might not like that, but in something like a field event, real time out there, if you have a checklist of what you need to get done, nobody's going to blame you for that. Use these things, bring them out, and actually make use of them when you're out in the defense. All right, let's talk about those actual fighting positions now. So we were at those skirmishers earlier. We're completing all these things, and now we need to actually start digging into that defense. So what we use is a two-man fighting holes, which is that's what you can see up on your screen right now. Now, when we're actually digging these things, we're going to be creating a parapet. The actual position itself is going to be 6 feet by 2 feet, or 2 M16s by 2 Kevlars. There's a grenade sump down at the bottom. That's where literally at a 30-degree angle, I'm going to dig as deep as humanly possible to the front of my defense If a grenade lands in my hole, that's where I want it to go because that's going to allow standoff from that actual explosion and me and my buddy inside that position. You can see it pointed right there on the actual screen. The parapet itself is 36 by 6 inches. That's hard packed dirt. What I mean by that is 36 inches wide by 6 inches long, or excuse me, 36 inches long by 6 inches high. Hard packed dirt that's going to stop a 7.62 from coming and impacting you or your actual buddy. Now, when I'm digging in this thing, I'm going to be digging to the height of the man who's digging or the Marine who's digging. Now, obviously, some Marines are higher than others, so we need to avoid what happened to Gimli during the second battle of the Lord of the Rings and it preventing them from actually being able to see over that position. So one of the things we can use is a firing step. If you guys look on the left side right here, this is what a firing step is. It's literally just a step that allows a shorter person to be able to fire from a higher person. That's going to give me that flexibility to be able to employ any fighting position with any person. This is also an example of a one-man fighting hole. All the dimensions are the same with the exception of the width. I'm just going to cut it in half so it's one person in there. My grenade sump and my water sump are going to go to the back of the fighting hole. They're still the angles and distances are still going to be the same. It's just going to be to the back of the fighting hole, vice to my side. When I'm actually digging into these things, as I'm creating stuff, I'm going to have some ability to create some overhead cover. I'm going to show you some examples of overhead cover. Now, this first one right here, this is a tarp, just that simple basic tarp that you have issued to you. You guys notice right here, those tan synthetic sandbags stick out pretty heavily. As well as with that tarp, there's a lot of movement when it comes to like wind hitting that thing. There's a bit of a shine, particularly when rain hits. So it's not a very good form of overhead cover when I'm using it. It might be like temporary. I only throw it up and over when I really need it. This next one that I have right here, this is a canvas covering that I would use to protect myself. It doesn't really cover or protect me from weather as much as it does as the tarp does, but it's going to camouflage me a lot better. If you guys look, you can see this is a camouflage sandbag right here. If I say non-camouflage sandbag right there. These guys have only camouflaged the front. If you look on this side right here, they're also exposed right there as well. All right, now this next one that I have, this is a lattice work. So this is sticks and logs that are laid crossways across my actual fighting position. That's going to give me some overhead cover. Now, over time, a lattice work will eventually become protected from like IDF actually coming and impacting me. But what that requires is that requires a layer of logs, a layer of sandbags, and then a layer of camouflage over the top. It's not something that I'm really going to achieve in a short-term defense. This one is purely just to cover me from observation. Now, what you can notice with these guys right here is that all of their camouflage that they took right here is taken from right along right here. So they've essentially reversed their camouflage and made themselves a large green pimple on the actual fighting position itself. And it really sticks out in comparison to the rest of the fighting position. Now, the last one that I want to show you guys, this is a burlap blanket. So think like a sniper's ghillie suit as to like as a comparison of what this actually looks like. It's just simply veg blanket over. These guys have taken camouflage across the entire area, so now their defense or their position has completely blended in. The only thing that really sticks out is this area right here that they left in order to allow you guys to see the difference between camouflage and non-camouflage. All right, hey guys. So to summarize what we just went through, we focused on that last bullet right there, management defensive operations, going into the actual fire plan sketch, troop to task, and those fighting positions of how you actually created them. Your earlier class went through the first 3 bullets of the characteristics, preparing, and execution of the defense. If you guys like these things and you want to keep going with these things, please give us feedback. Let us know what we are able to do. Come and find any of us in the bullpen. We'll be happy to help you and go through these things of what you need to actually do in order to